Father, I'm blessed to have four grandchildren. I think Mr. Tanner told me they were my great-grandchildren, but I'm going to ask Ethan, Quinn, Alexa, and Alex to come up to the front, please. Ethan's my oldest. He's a senior at Mandeville High School. He has gone through Madisonville Elementary, Madisonville Junior High, and now he's in Mandeville. He's graduating this year, and he'll be heading off to college next year. Quinn is another one that's in the St. Tammany school system. Quinn started in Madisonville Elementary, and he's now at Lancaster. Alex is also, he's on the other side of the parish, but Alex went to Mandeville Elementary, Chafuncta Middle, and now he's in Mandeville Junior High. And the last of the little one there, the one with the big smile on, Alexa, she's in Mandeville Elementary, and she's now in Chafuncta. So I'm very proud of all of them, and would you all go ahead and start us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Go ahead.
The flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm sorry? That's right. No, it's too expensive. Okay.
Okay. All right. Your attention, continue on with the practice that was started last year. I want to bring in and recognize my former pastor, Father Rodney Berg. I'm going to give a little write-up on this. It seems that the individuals at my different churches who have had my pastor, and it's been changing, they always come up with a nice little quip, and I think you're going to enjoy this. It says, Father Rodney Berg has been a diocesan Roman Catholic priest for 41 years. Father Berg is Dean of the West St. Tammany, Washington Parish Catholic Deanery and serves on many boards and committees of the Archdiocese. He is the founding pastor of Most Holy Trinity Catholic Church in Covington. Father Berg struggled for 8 years getting his church project approved and has a special place in his prayer life for the tree mitigation and the tree bank, both of which he finds as mysterious as the Holy Trinity. Please, Father.
Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, we ask that you send down your Spirit upon these council members as they begin their deliberations this day. Give them the knowledge and understanding of the difficult situations they face, the wisdom and courage to make the hard decisions that need to be made to assist the most people, and the humility to appreciate the hard-working people whom they represent and serve. May Our Lady of Prompt Succor, patroness of the state of Louisiana, watch over, nurture, and encourage a spirit of cooperation and compromise among these legislators so that they may be able to accomplish their task of moving this great parish forward to even greater things. And we ask this as always through Christ our Lord.
Amen. Thank you, Father.
Thank you. Wow. Okay, we'll go, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Dean. Here. Mr. Fitzgerald. Here. Mr. Thompson. Mr. Toledano. Present. Mr. Tanner. Here. Mr. Belisario.
Here.
Mr. Lorino.
Here.
Mr. Groby. Here. Mr. Canulet. Here. Ms. O'Brien. Here. Mr. Stefanczyk. Here. Mr. Bender. Ms. Blanchard. Mr. Smith. You have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam President, would you please come up with the presentations, please?
You were hiding from me. This is always such a pleasure for me. We have so many hardworking employees. Recognizing them has always been one of my favorite things to do. Come on up, Jared. So as Employee of the Month, whereas Jared Hingle has been a devoted St. Tammany Parish employee since December 2013, when he was hired as a utility maintenance service worker in the Department of Public Works. And in July 2016, he transferred into the inspections department as a drainage inspector. And whereas Jared has diligently worked his way up from drainage inspector to building inspector by achieving 4 International Code Council certifications. And whereas he takes great pride in his work, is thorough and detail-oriented, is reliable, and is very well liked by his coworkers, builders, and contractors. Whereas Jared works hard to ensure all building standards and codes are met while representing himself and St. Tammany Parish government with integrity and professionalism. And whereas Jared Hingle is an overall outstanding employee and a valued member of our St. Tammany Parish team, I therefore, Patricia Brister, do hereby recognize the hard work and accomplishment of Jared Hingle as Employee of the Month of January 2019, and encourage all employees of St. Tammany Parish to thank him for his contributions and commitment to St. Tammany Parish. He truly is a professional. Thank you, Jared, very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. It's pretty nice when your coworkers give you a standing ovation. It knows how well you're liked.
Very nice.
The next presentation is by Dr. Trueheart.
Yes, she just
Just
arrived.
walked in. I knew I was looking for her. She is going to give a presentation on the Rotary of Mandeville.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
There are many of them. So, Dr.
Yes.
Trueheart, I'll give it to you.
Thank you. And we have a film that we're going to start off with first, I think. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and do our presentation first, and then we can watch the video second. First of all, good evening. My name is Leanne Trueheart. I am the president-elect of the North Lake Mandeville Rotary Club, and it is an honor to be here this evening to tell you about a special project that our club is doing to benefit Safe Haven. First, I'd like to thank Parish President Pat Brister and Kelly Rabelais for your dedication and support and leadership, unwavering leadership in creating and guiding Safe Haven as it's created. And also would like to thank Mr. Chairperson and all of the members of the council for your support of Safe Haven. I think we all agree and understand the importance of this initiative in our community. Our Rotary Club is raising funds and organizing volunteers to provide recreational and meditation areas on the campus of Safe Haven, and each of my fellow Rotarians is going to give you a brief description of what we're doing, starting with Jay.
Good evening. My name is Jay Capouch. I've been a member of Mandeville Rotary for about 8 years, and we got introduced to the Safe Haven project about 2 years ago. And in 2018, we were able to raise about $5,000 to get started by way of district grants and contributions from not only the Mandeville Rotary Club, but also Covington and Slidell clubs. And we began renovation of the recreational facilities at Safe Haven, which include the baseball diamond, there's a tennis court and basketball court, and a small picnic pavilion. And we've started renovating those, and we expect to continue in that project for quite some time. The Safe Haven itself is developing its 3 to 5 year development plan, and we expect to continue to raise funds either through district grants, community support, global Rotary International support, and other areas to continue to support the Safe Haven project for a long time. If you're not familiar with Rotary, we have over 1.2 million members worldwide, 35,000 Rotary clubs, And recently, they've been able to almost put an end to polio worldwide. And we've added mental health as a primary focus for Rotary International. And we expect to be able to continue to use a project like Safe Haven as a model for other Rotary clubs to develop experts and expert opinions to solve our mental health issues. And I'll turn this over now to Buck.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know, Rotary's motto is service above self. And so Rotarians are never more happy than when they have a hammer or a saw or some other tool in their hand. Consequently, we've had a lot of fun out there at the Safe Haven campus and currently working on the projects that Jay mentioned. We are coordinating with other nonprofit and service organizations, and we hope to continue to do so to increase our numbers and make a bigger impact. In that light, I'm sure that I will be able to send our upcoming workday schedule to the council, and I will count on seeing at least a few people out there to help us out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jean Shrey. I'm also a member of the Rotary Club, and I was also a mental health. I have a mental health diagnosis as well. I got diagnosed in 2005 from taking Accutane, a drug that caused suicide attempts and 4 hospitalizations. I've been in group home and different things like that. So I know the difficulty of having schizophrenia, and I know what that's like. I'm in recovery and have lived doing very well and being treated, and I have made many accomplishments, but I know that it's a big struggle for people in this community. It's a very needed thing. It's the most important thing, I think, in this area right now in this community, as far as I'm concerned, of seeing and what it can do to somebody. And I just think if there was such a place like this when I was going through my disorder and my challenges, I wish there would have been a place for me to go to get peer support from going through crisis. And I'm just glad to get a part of this Safe Haven project, to be able to get over there to help those that are going through mental health diagnosis in these types of challenges. It's just a big need right now, and I'm just so excited to be a part of it. So thank you.
So as part of our mental health initiative, we've also had mental health speakers. We support NAMI and STOPS, nonprofits that I'm sure you're familiar with, and we also have created a series of public service announcements to help reduce the stigma associated with mental illness. And Ronnie Simpson and his wonderful team at the Parish's Public Information Office put together a really great series that were done by some of our members, and the idea was to show the community, to show business and community leaders talking about it's okay to get help. So here we go. I'm confident.
Public health on this issue, we would not be able to do nearly as much as we are doing. So we thank them so much for Rotary for stepping up. It's just been a godsend for them to be there, and I can't wait for everybody to see what they've done. So thank you all.
Thank you, Madam President. Also, I'll agree with you. I know Dr. Trueheart very well. She devotes a lot of her time, personal time, a lot of her family time, and you do a great job, Leanne, and St. Tammany Parish is very happy and proud of you. So I just wanted to say thank you very much.
While he's working on that, I'd like to say in return, Mr. Chairman, you have been wonderful. One of our biggest supporters with regards to mental health and Safe Haven, and I know that comes from just a variety of different areas and backgrounds with respect to your understanding about the issues, and just sincerely thank you so much for everything that you've done for NAMI and the different mental health initiatives in the community.
You're welcome. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Oh, here we go. That's him, by the way.
The Parish indicated a couple of years ago that they saw mental illness as the prime issue that could be addressed with education and community support. Our Mandeville Rotary Club adopted mental illness as our prime focus for community service.
Anyone that's aware of a loved one, neighbor, coworker, even employees with mental health issues should reach out and try to assist those individuals.
No one ever got better by staying home and dealing with something themselves when there was physical treatment available or mental treatment available from professionals to help them out.
When I realized that I had a problem, I sought help right away at NAMI. I started going to connection support groups, and I've been leading those for 6 years now at NAMI.
The stigma attached to mental health is the belief that there are no solutions or cures.
A huge part of my life is just getting help. I needed to get help. There was no way around. I mean, I had to seek help. There was no surviving without it for me.
And so if we can educate people to seek help, then they'll benefit themselves and they'll benefit our community and society by doing so.
There are real issues that are being tackled by these professionals, and the recipients of the services can be helped greatly.
I don't think that there's any reason for someone not to seek help once the symptoms are recognized, and they can move forward from there.
The sooner you seek help, the sooner you can have a solution and have a more meaningful and peaceful life.
Mental illness is a worldwide problem, and so Rotary has focused on its resources to help find solutions and further treatments and understand the causes and effects of a lot of these things. And I think once they focus their attention in that area and focus their resources in that area, we can make great strides.
Great, thank you.
Thank you again, Leanne and Rotary. Okay, I have a little presentation that I want to talk about, and for just a minute. Last year, Michelle Blanchett was our chair, and she did a fantastic job. I worked with her as vice chair for a year, and we laughed up here and we joked a lot, but we really communicated, and she kind of helped me along the way for me to sit in this chair at this time. But more importantly, elected officials, we all devote a lot of time and effort, as do the employees of St. Tammany Parish. But sometime when the chair, you have to devote a little more time. And then when you're working, you have to devote a little bit more time. And on top of that, if you're married and you have kids and you're raising your kids, you really have to devote some more time. And that's exactly what Chair Blanchett did last year. She did every one of those things that I mentioned 100%. And it was amazing that she had the time, the effort, but I'm not surprised at her dedication to the people in St. Tammany Parish. So if you would, with me, I'd like to present Chair Blanchett a nice plaque, and she deserves a very round of applause. So Michelle, would you come up? Michelle? find it. There she is.
Oh, that's yours? Where's mine? Oh,
You're on.
mine's on the other
You're
side.
on.
I gotta change sides now. First, I just want to thank all the employees, the staff, the directors of St. Tammany Parish, and the employees, and the council employees and staff. They work every day very hard to help the citizens of our parish, and I thank them so much for their efforts. Thank you, Mike. You were a wonderful vice chair. Steve Stefanczyk, thank you for all your help in the, as being the past chair. And Dina, thank you for everything that you do every day to help me. So again, thank you for giving me the pleasure and the honor to serve. This has been a difficult year that we went through. I want to thank our parish president. No matter how difficult an obstacle was, there was always a looking for a positive solution. And I know that we'll continue, and I think this will be a good growth year for St. Tammany Parish. So I'm looking forward to what the future has for us, and I thank each and every one of you for all your help every day and your efforts, and I thank each council member that's up here too. It's not easy what you do, and I appreciate the support that you've given me in the last 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, we'll get on to the appointments. Well, yeah, I guess we'll do the appointments now, and then we'll do, okay. Okay, we'll go to number 1, resolution to appoint Zach Smith to replace Greg Crawford, resign to the Board of Directors of Recreation District Number 7. Mr. Tanner? Motion by Mr. Tanner.
Second.
Second by Mr. Toledano. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Thank you. Resolution to, number 2, resolution to appoint Patty Ellish to the Parish Tourism and Convention Commission. Mr. Dean. Second by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay. While we're on the appointments, I'd like to appoint Councilman Stefanczyk to be our parliamentarian for 2019. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to the consent calendar. Any items not pulled from the consent calendar automatically approved in whole by 1 vote. Items pulled from the consent calendar are discussed and voted upon individually. A majority of the entire council 8 votes is required to adopt the consent calendar. I'd like to go over which ones we have pulled so far. We have ordinance calendar number 20, 6128. Ordinance calendar number 6129, number 21. Under resolutions, we have resolution number 1, CS number C-6042. Number 2, resolution CS number C-6043. Resolution number 3, CS number C-6044. Resolution number 6, CS number C-6047. Resolution number 11, CS number C-6052. Resolution number 12, CS number C-6053. And that's the last one. I'll go to the council and, anything, Mr. Dean? Mr. Fitzgerald? Mr. Thompson? Mr. Toledano? Mr. Tanner? Mr. Balisaro?
Yes, I'm going to pull ordinance calendar number 6125. It's number 17, on the top of page 5.
Anything else? Number 17.
Number 17,
Yes, sir.
it's on the top of page 5.
Number 5. Number 6125. Anything else, Jim?
No, that's it.
Okay.
All right.
Jake? Mr. Groban?
Yes, sir. Item resolution number 9, CSC 6050.
No. Which one, Jake? I'm sorry.
Number 9, resolution CS 6050.
Okay. Resolution number 96050. Anything else, Jake? Mr. Canulet?
No, sir.
Ms. O'Brien?
No, sir.
Mr. Stefanski?
Pass.
Ms. Blanchard?
No, sir.
Mr. Smith?
None.
Thank you. There you go. I don't use that one, no. That's only for the appeals. Okay, ordinance calendar number, I need a motion to everything on consent that's not been pulled. Motion by Mr. Canulet, second by Mr. Smith. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay. Number 17, ordinance calendar number 6125. Mr. Balisaro?
I will pass off to Councilwoman Maureen O'Brien.
There's a speaker card, that's why I wanted it pulled.
I believe we have somebody in the audience who wanted to speak on this.
Mr. Matthew Greer?
Hello, Council. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Greer. Please state your name and your address.
Matthew Greer, 1008 Whitetail Drive, Mandeville, Louisiana,
Yes, sir.
in Deerfield subdivision.
Thank you. Please go ahead, sir.
I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, so I don't do public speaking all that often, so forgive me. The Deerfield residents are not opposed to the use of this property at all. We had a community meeting on December 18th with some concerns about drainage and flooding in the area. And as God would have it, on December 28th in the morning to Friday morning, we had a major rain event that I think demonstrates some of our concerns. So I'm just here to appeal to the council. I don't know what the right terminology is, but just to possibly pause on this ordinance pending a drainage review of the area, because I think the Mayhaw branch, which is proposed for fill, serves a critical function for drainage of not only our area, but other subdivisions as well. And I really feel that this project, if not executed correctly, could have very negative impacts for me and my neighbors. So that's my appeal.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Any questions from the council? Hold on, Ms. O'Brien, go ahead.
I do certainly appreciate the concerns that he has stated, and I do thank President Brister for allowing not one but two people from staff to attend. We certainly had a variety of people from our council staff, and we also had the developer and the attorney for the developer and someone from the Corps of Engineers. But what we have before us today is just the introduction. Perhaps one of our attorneys can re-explain the process in a very short synopsis so he can understand. But again, what we are doing currently is just introducing.
No, and I understand that, and I believe the merits meeting is in February, correctly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I mean, would these things be better brought forth at that meeting?
Yes, sir. But again, I just want to remind you that we are going to be evaluating the use. Okay, so at this point, I do move to introduce.
Sure, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. O'Brien, second by Mr. Canulet. Please vote. Okay. Thank you. Ordinance count number 20, ordinance calendar number 6128, ordinance to amend the 2019 operating budget.
No.
Ms. Annie?
I don't know what to do, so somebody tell me what to do. Okay. All right. Can y'all hear me? This is my first time speaking to the microphone. Okay.
Could I make a suggestion? Would you move right down?
Sure.
It's easier than turning around trying to speak to them, and I'll help you move all your stuff. Sorry, I didn't think about it earlier.
That's fine.
And Leslie is on her way. She just didn't get here in time. She's traveling, so sorry.
So ordinance calendar 6128 is to amend the 2019 operating budget, amendment number 2. There are 3 items on this amendment. The first is to increase the expenditure budget in the Public Works Fund for the build grant for our match, the 20%. That amount is $7.2 million. The second item shown is to amend the Animal Services Fund budget to increase revenues and the associated expenses for the passage of the millage. And the last item on this amendment is to increase expenditures within the Highway 59 Economic Development District Fund for a capital project to replace signs and irrigation removed by LADOTD during the US 11 road elevation project.
Motion by Mr. Toledano, second by Mr. Balisaro. Please, no need to vote. Thank you. Number 21, ordinance calendar number 6129, ordinance to establish the 2019 grants budget. Ms. Annie?
This is the first grants budget during 2019, so this is to begin the process during this year to establish the grants budget. For this ordinance, we have 2 grant awards listed. We have the LEH K-12 Educators Contest Grant Award, and we also have the fiscal year 2017 Flood Mitigation Assistance Award for the elevation of 25 structures.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Toledano, second by Mr. Balisaro. Thank you. Resolutions. Resolution number 1, CS number C-6042, resolution approving the holding of an election in the Parish Protection District number 7. Mr. Tanner?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Tanner, second by Mr. Balisaro. Please vote. Take it down.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Resolution number 2, CS number C-6043, resolution granting approval to Parish Recreation District number 4 to call and hold an election. Mr. Groby?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Groby.
Second.
Second by Mr. Balisaro. Seeing no one in the queue, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Resolution number 3, CS number C-6044, resolution providing for the canvassing the returns and declaring the results of a special election. Animal Services.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Balisaro. Second by Mr. Toledano. Please vote. Seeing no one in the queue. Oh, Ms. O'Brien,
Mr.
I'm
Brown?
sorry. Okay, you were going to go by my email, right? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. We'll try that one. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. Number 6, resolution CS number C-6047, resolution to acknowledge the authority of the parish president to sign a cooperative endeavor agreement with Oak Harbor Property Owners Association, Ward 9, District 12. Ms. Ravelai, they had it for me to pull.
Administration doesn't have a comment on this in case, or if anybody from the council has a comment, but I apologize. We did not ask to pull it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tanner?
Second.
Second by Mr. Balisaro. Seeing no one in the queue, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Resolution number 9, resolution CS number C-6050, resolution to acknowledge the authority pursuant to the Home Rule Charter, Section 1-04, 1-06, 3-01, and 3-09 for the St. Tammany Parish Government through the Office of the Parish President to sign and execute an intergovernmental agreement with the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office for the purpose of jail funding. Mr. Groby.
Can you turn your mic on?
Can't hear you.
Hold on. Go ahead, Jay.
Now you got it. All right. Just a quick question for the benefit of the public, to let them know what kind of impact this is going to do. Do we have like a monetary amount we can tell the public what it's going to impact out of our general fund to have to fund the jail?
If you give us a second, we could look at what we have budgeted for 2019, both from our general fund and also for jail medical. We'll be using our public health millage.
Thank you.
If you could just give us a couple of seconds, we can look at that for you.
Thank you.
We can pass it. I'm going to get a budget book.
Annie, as long as you get the budget book. You need the budget book? If you'll give us a minute, we need to get the budget book. It's in the budget, but we just didn't pull a budget book out.
Okay.
So we will bring it back up.
Maybe we'll just move on to the next one, and we'll come back to that one, Jake, if that's okay with you. Okay. No. Okay. All right, we'll come back to that one. Resolution number 11, Resolution CS number C-6052, resolution approving Mealy Printing Incorporated for participation in the industrial tax exemption program. Mr. Stavasnik. Motion by Mr. Stavasnik, second by Mr. Toledano. I have Mr.
Dean.
Mr. Dean. Do me a favor, hit your button and I'll be able to hear it rather than hearing anybody's name. Maybe it'll work out a little better for you. Anyway, Jason Arnder? Arnder?
It's Ambo without any objections. We don't have anything to say. Or no one to ask any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Seeing nobody in the queue,
I'll second motion.
please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Resolution number 12, CS number C-6053, resolution to amend the ordinance CS number 18-3977 to make changes to the 2019 capital improvement budget and capital assets.
We need a second. Second.
Second by Mr. Toledano. Motion by Mr. Balisaro. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Mr. Chairman, we have that number if you would like.
Yes, ma'am. We'll go back. Thank you, Ms. Annie.
Do I need to push a button? Oh, it's already working, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll get used to it eventually. So just for reference, if you go to the budget book, page 129 of 210 shows the expenditures that we're funding related to the jail. In the general fund, the 2019 budget is $5.6 million, and the public health fund is almost $2 million, 1.977.
Mr. Groby.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that the public understood the type of impact the budget's going to take this year for this.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Tanner. All in favor? Please vote. Yep.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Mr. Chairman, could I just, you didn't see my little button, so I will just mention, and thank you, Councilman Groby, for bringing that up, because I think one of the most important things is the amount of money that we're taking out of our public health millage to pay a mandated cost at the jail because our tax was renewed. We now do not have that money to use on public health across the parish. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to appeals. Appeal number 1, Mr. Hernandez appealing the zoning commission approval on October 2nd, 2018 of a text change and ordinance to amend Chapter 130 of the St. Tammany Parish Unified Development Code to add brewery and distillery with tours, specifically Section 130-5 definition, and to Section 13-1075-I-2 industrial district administration permits, 130-1108-1I-3 heavy industrial district, 130-1130-I-4 heavy industrial district administrative permits, and 130-2213 minimum standards. Mr. Hernandez. Hold on. Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes, we have met several times and with Mr. Hernandez, and I think that we have made the appropriate changes where everybody is satisfied with the wording. So his appeal will be dropped, and thus I'd like to move to concur with the approval of the zoning.
Motion by Mr. Fitzgerald, second by Mr. Thompson to approve. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
What's that? Okay, number 2, Giselle, okay, I have to concur with the zoning approval, a simple majority of vote is required in introduction of an ordinance.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Balisaro, second by Mr. Canulet. Please vote. No vote. Go ahead, Colin.
I think that Councilman Fitzgerald has a substitute ordinance for you.
Go ahead, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Yes, so based on the change in wording, we've voted to concur with the approval. Now we just need to introduce the substitute ordinance with the new wording.
Motion by Mr. Fitzgerald, second by Mr. Canulet.
Thank you.
No. Thank you. Okay, number 2, Giselle Diaz-Islak, appealing the conditions of a zoning commission approval on November 7, 2018 of a variance to allow for internal illumination of the proposed monument sign located within the Highway 21 Planned Corridor overlay on the southwest corner of Highway 21 and Greenbrier Boulevard. Mr. Dean.
I believe Ms. Eastlake is here. She'd like to speak, and then I'd come back to me, please.
Sure. Yeah.
Good
Yes, ma'am,
evening.
go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Giselle Diaz-Eastlack. I'm one of the owners of the new Shell station on Highway 21 in Greenbrier, and I'm here to ask, I agree with the conditions that the Planning Commission, the Zoning Commission issued, but I am asking for a couple of more concessions. I would like 3 more portions of the sign to be internally illuminated, one being the Shell pectin or the Shell logo. As you can see, it is on a white background, but at night, only the pectin would be illuminated. And I'm also asking, at the bottom of the sign, there are 2 additional panels that would be internally illuminated. Both are about 2.5 square feet. So.
Let me stop it. Mr. Fitzgerald?
No.
You okay?
I'm good.
Okay. Mr. Dean?
Did you want to see if there's any opposition? I don't believe it is.
No.
Okay, good. This is if you go down Highway 21, and you know what we've tried to do over the years is stick to the planned corridor overlay. Even with the widening of the highway, I think it was widened twice, it kind of encroached upon the 100-foot right of way, but still a lot of the people were able to continue to keep the trees and to keep it real pretty. I think if you pass by their store, it's just probably one of the prettiest that we have. I know on Highway 21 with some, what do you call it, shops and stuff in the back part too. Anyway, so what I'd like to do, and I appreciate their compromise, what I'd like to do is to concur with the zoning commission. I'm reading all this because the attorney had to tell me how to say it. But concur with zoning commission approval with the following conditions. Number 1, where it says only the portion of the sign identifying gas prices to include the Shell logo and the 2 bottom panels shall be allowed to be internally illuminated as shown on the attached drawing that Ms. Eastlake just showed. So that would be the amendment to that, or the change to that. We would take out number 2, and then we would keep all the rest, 3, 4, and 5. So the only one I would change would be number 1 and then eliminate number 2. Please.
So that's your amendment to it? Mr.
That's
Dean?
correct.
Is there a second by Mr. Thompson? Okay. Seeing no one, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Now we need to vote on it. Okay.
Motion for introduction.
Motion by Mr. Dean, second by Mr. Balisaro for introduction. Seeing no one? No vote. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. All right, appeal number 3, James Tidwell appealing the zoning commission approval on December 4, 2018 to rezone 10 acres located south of Highway 435, east of West Mermaid Lane, West White Oak Lane, and from A-1 Suburban District and RO Rural Overlay to H3-3 Highway Commercial District and RO Rural Overlay, Ward 6, District 6. Mr. Tanner? Mr. Tanner?
Really? Is the appellate here? That's, yes.
Yes, I have 2 people that wish to speak, yes. I have Mr. Jeff Shane and also Mr. James Tidwell. Mr. James?
I am James Tidwell.
How you doing, sir?
And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to voice my concerns over this project that Mr. Milovic is proposing. First off, it's on 435, which is a 2-lane asphalt secondary road, heavily congested at sometimes, but with the addition of, I think he's talking about 200 people, that would be 100+ automobiles that would impact us just tremendously. Just last month, we had 2 cars slip in my front yard. If you have 100 cars, people coming all at the same time for a venue, that means that they're going to be, they're not going to come at 3, 4, 5, and 6 for a 7 o'clock venue. They're going to come at 6:30, and they're all going to be there at the same time, and they're going to be backed up one way or the other. So I would think that there would have to be turnoff lanes off of 435. That would be just seems to be reasonable. They're all going to be looking for his driveway, and then his building is supposed to be in the very back of the property, so they won't be able to see it unless it has neon lights. I'm really concerned about the traffic and then the extra tax burden on the sheriff, because I spoke with the sheriff and they weren't even able to furnish me with information about that. It was kind of crazy. I asked them about incidents on 435 between 41 and Allen Road, I believe it is, and they didn't have that information. They would have to come from the state troopers. But there are an awful lot of accidents on there. And if you have 100 cars or more coming to a venue, wedding reception, wine tasting, whatever, alcohol consumption, and they all leave and get on 435 after consuming a few amounts of alcohol, I think we're going to have another serious problem with more traffic and more accidents. Another concern is a venue for a building that's going to support 200 people is going to have one heck of a sewage system. And I'm really concerned about the discharge of that. I don't know if an EPA study has been done or if that's required. I don't know. I don't know what the parish requires, but for 200 people, I would think that it's going to have to be pretty substantial. That's in my layman's estimation. I'm worried about property values. There's no commercial there, and now he wants to have commercial. And what's that going to do to me? My property is adjacent to his on 435. So it's going to make it at least more difficult to sell if I decide to sell, and it may cause a devaluation, and I'm concerned about that also. I don't know where it will stop. He's going to, if he gets an approval for this, and he's talking about 10 acres now, and I don't see where you can park 100 cars on 10 acres and still have a building, so that means that there's got to be some expansion, unless they're going to park on Mirrormead, which is the street that divides our property, which is actually my property with an easement for the road. So I don't think I want to have that either. I have another neighbor that's with us tonight, E. Thomas Herndon, who lives behind me, who supports the things that I'm bringing up, and moved out there for peace and quiet, to be, you know, in the country. And to have a venue with 200 people is not my idea of peace and quiet, and it's not why I moved out there, and it wasn't there when I moved in. There was no talk of that. In fact, the first I heard of this was the day after the city council, or the zoning commission meeting. That was the very first I heard of it, when a neighbor called me to talk to me about it. Mr. Milovic never called me until after I filed the appeal. He called me, but that was it. I had never heard another word. So I'm just really concerned about the traffic. I'm concerned about the sewage. I'm concerned about property values. I'm concerned about all the things I've mentioned, you know, and that's all I have to say, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tidwell. Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Happy New Year to all. I represent Mr. and Mrs. Milicevic, and since I have mispronounced their name, since I have met them a couple of months ago, I'm going to refer to them as Ivan and Kim, because they're here with me this evening. I think I'd like to start the presentation as these handouts come to you by giving you some background as to what this case is all about, because many of you may not know. My clients own approximately 40 acres on Highway 435, and they currently operate a vineyard. They grow grapes and make wine, and they would like to have the opportunity to have a reception venue facility on premise so that they would be able to have events such as wedding receptions, retirement parties, birthday parties, political gatherings, etc. In pursuit of that opportunity, my clients first contacted their councilman, Mr. Tanner, to explain their proposal and what they had in mind. They then consulted with Ms. Lambert in the Planning and Zoning Department and conferred with her with regard to the possible zones that could be sought to allow them to construct a facility to have reception venue at this location. They then went to each of the neighbors that surround and touch their property and explained the proposal to them. Then they filed their zoning change proposal and went through the process, went to the zoning commission hearing, literally had no one in opposition at the hearing, presented their case, and got all but one vote from the zoning commission to recommend the change of zoning to you this evening. So in simple terms, this is an approximate 40-acre parcel. The 10 acres in question, as you can see on the handout that I've given you on page 1, is somewhat in the middle of the 40 acres that they own. So that in terms of the properties that surround and abut, you can see that very evidently, particularly on the second page. And perhaps the third page of the handout is most depictive because it then refers or gives you some landmarks where you can look at the Tidwell property, which is far to the west and does not touch or get anywhere near the 10 acres in question. I'd like to make some specific comments with regard to the matters that Mr. Tidwell brought up to you this evening. First and foremost, as with regard to traffic concerns. It's a state highway, Highway 435. Permits for connections to a state highway have to be issued by DOTD. But in addition to that, you have ordinances as it relates to the procurement of a building permit to build a facility that would certainly require that, because it's in excess of 2 acres, that we would have to present a traffic study before the building permit could be procured. So the issue of traffic is certainly a valid issue, but it is not an issue that really is addressed through zoning. In this particular instance, it's an issue that's going to be, I guess, controlled in some respects from a jurisdictional standpoint by DOTD because we're on a state highway, but also you're going to have control through your ordinances as it relates to the issuance of a building permit because of the fact that an HC3 zone in excess of 2 acres or 75,000 square feet would require presentment of a traffic study before a building permit can issue. Mr. Tidwell also made reference to signage. We don't have a design for our signage yet. We're an operating vineyard at present, but whatever signage we propose will have to meet all parish requirements. With regard to controlling traffic during events, we fully intend to retain a sheriff's detail to monitor traffic going in and coming out onto the highway. That is not a public expenditure. That is a process that is, of course, a program through the sheriff's office where my client would literally pay for the services to retain the appropriate sheriff's detail to make sure that traffic conditions are safe, not just for those attending the event, but also to make sure that there are safe conditions for the residents in the area. With regard to utilities, any utilities will have to meet any and all federal, state, and local standards, particularly as it relates to, discharge of treated water, et cetera. So we don't anticipate any breach of code nor any environmental concern that would be raised as a result of this zoning change. The parking will meet code requirements. It will abut the building. Again, if you'll look at the third page of the attachment I handed out to you, the event center will be built to the rear of the property, on the rear 2 acres, and that's where the parking will be as well. There's plenty of room on the 10 acres for the parking for the particular event center. So one of the things that I did not mention to you is that every neighbor that my client visited with was in full support of the proposition. It's our belief that's why none of them appeared at the zoning commission. My clients did try to reach out to the Tidwells. He tells me on 3 occasions prior to the zoning commission hearing, and it understood that there would be a meeting, and my clients waited for the Tidwells to get back and give them a date and time, and that never occurred. That's not a reason that you should support this proposition. It is only to let you know that my client believes that he is a good neighbor at present, and that before he embarked on this zoning change to provide him the potential opportunity to have a reception venue, he wanted to let all of his neighbors know what he had in mind, give them the details. Why not? That's the right thing to do. And he is encouraged that his neighbors are in support, particularly the neighbors that literally and physically abut his property on all sides, with the exception of the appellant, which has spoken this evening. So in summary, I'd like to suggest to you that the proposed plan will meet all of the legal requirements imposed, albeit federal, state, or parish, that the existing business, I think, is an asset to the community. A wine vineyard is one that I think is very conducive to that particular area, and it's the type of thing that not only produces commerce, but it also is a reason that visitors come to our area to see how people make a living in our parish. It shows the diversity that we have. And I think that the opportunity for people to have a reception venue in a wine vineyard setting is nothing different than what you would often see in such areas as California, in wine country, or other places in the world for that matter. So I think it's really an excellent opportunity. This is not a heavily congested suburban area. This is not a heavily traveled state highway. I'm not suggesting there's not traffic on it, but there's no record or reason to believe that the expansion of this business won't be compatible with the existing conditions. Last but not least, your zoning commission, which is a specialist as it relates to studying proposed zoning changes, looked at this case, heard the proposition, and again, all but one voted in favor of recommending to you that this zoning change be made. So for that reason, we ask that you concur with the zoning commission recommendation and that you introduce an ordinance this evening after sustaining the recommendation to change the zoning of this property to HC3. If any of you have any questions or comments, I will be glad to address them at the appropriate time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Shan. Mr. Tidwell, you have 5 minutes to rebut and come up and.
Thank you again.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Mr. Milovchik, Vic, or whatever it is, never, ever spoke to me one word prior to to me filing the appeal. Not a single word about this project. I don't care what he says, and I don't care who says it. It's not the truth. They never spoke to me about it, and they never spoke to my wife about it. They didn't speak to Mr. Herndon about it. He's my next-door neighbor. I'd like to know who the neighbors are that he spoke to. I really would. There's 3 neighbors that are adjoining him, me, David Lemieux, and I don't know the other gentleman's name. And I'd like to know who he spoke to, because he sure as heck didn't speak to me. Not a single word, not a word, not till after the appeal was filed. So that's not true. I don't know what else to say, you know. If a guy wants to, if that's not true, I wonder what else isn't true, you know. So, but he didn't speak to me. I want everyone to know that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Shan? You have 5 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I think to answer the question posed, my client said he went to the house 3 times and thought that he was waiting for a date and time to meet. Maybe there's a dispute there, but I just asked my client again, don't let me go to the podium and say that you reached out to this gentleman if you didn't. It's not a sin if you didn't, but if you did, I want to know it. And he tells me that he did. But more importantly, I'd like to answer the question that Mr. Tidwell asked about who did he contact. And that would be, if you want to look at your drawing, although the names aren't on your drawings, on the east side, it's a Michael Globert, Globert. It looks like it's 68600 Highway 434, absolutely in full support. On the south side of the property, David Lemuel, excuse me, and to the west of Mr. Lemuel, Ryan Nichichi, Nicocini, and I've probably mispronounced that. Those are the 3 property owners that abut, other than the Tidwells, that he spoke to, met with, and support him. And again, I want to emphasize that Mr. Tidwell's Drive and the public road that services his property do not abut this 10 acres and will not be used and are not a part of the proposed servicing of the event center, of the development itself. The access will be off of Highway 435 onto a driveway, onto the 10 acres that will meet the regulations I earlier cited. So we respect the Tidwell's thoughts and want to continue to be a good neighbor, and for that reason, we're going to make sure that when we plan this development that we do everything we can to ensure convenience and safety for all that live in that 435 corridor at present. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Mr. Shane, I just have, there's a few questions and a few councilmen that have some questions, and I just have one or two things I want to ask you. Earlier, was the zoning case properly noticed with the sign and so forth and so on?
To my knowledge, yes, sir.
Okay. Second, and this doesn't apply to this case, but I hear it all the time. I've been hearing it for 3 years, and it's a legitimate concern, in my opinion, is when a zoning case comes forward and someone talks about drainage or traffic study, and it's like, well, that's not here. You know, maybe one of these days we can move forward and get a zoning case that will encompass zoning, traffic, and drainage so that we could do it all at one time. That's just my little pet peeve, but I just wanted to say that. Anyway.
Appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Balisaro? Do you have anything?
No, no.
Mr. Tanner?
Does Mr. Groby want to speak?
Just one quick question for Shane. Is there any plans for any type of buffer, plantings, trees, anything along the property owner's property line area?
Well, first of all, we'll have to meet the landscaping ordinance as it relates to HC3 abutting the remainder of my client's property, which has the A zone. But also, again, if you look at the third page of the handout, you'll see that the abutting property to this 10 acres is the property owned by my clients.
Okay. I didn't know if they were going to maybe put something there, kind of break the look a little bit. I was just wondering if there was any future plans for that.
No, if anything, there'll probably be a future plan to expand the vineyard
Thank you.
onto the surrounding property that they own. That's the hope.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stefanczyk?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you did make me parliamentarian, so I want to remind you that once you have asked one side a question,
Yes,
you
sir.
must allow the 3-minute rebuttal, the 3-minute summary, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tidwell, would you like to come up and answer any questions or make a summary on it?
If I may, I'm Mrs. Tidwell.
Yes, ma'am, you can come forward.
My husband has a hearing impairment, so he's asking me to tell him what you guys are
You
asking.
take your time.
Okay, we did receive a notification on our door, but I travel for my job, and my husband is often not at the house. And so when we got back to the property, we got the notification, and it was too late. Like I said, our notification was really, when we got the tag, we called, we spoke with our representative, Mr. Tanner, to understand what the process was and what we needed to do to voice our concerns and to appeal the process. So our intentions were good. We just didn't have the opportunity to follow the process at the beginning of the process. And so we're here today to try to amend that.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions for Ms. Tidwell or Mr. Tidwell? Seeing none, Mr. Tanner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to correct one statement that Mr. Tisdale made, was the fact that Mary Mead Road was his road and he owned it. He doesn't. It's a parish road that we blacktop and we maintain. So I don't know where he gets that he owns that road. He lives on one side of that road, but he don't live on the same side that this gentleman is wanting to put his vineyard. The other thing is, y'all know how I am about subdivisions. I'd rather have a wine tasting place out there and take up this 40 acres in agricultural and what have you instead of a bunch of homes. So I think it's an asset to that area so we don't have to put a lot of homes and we can use it for commercial. We have those in my district already. We have 2 of these deals in my district already. Both of them, a lot of you people probably have already been to the one on 1082. And nobody even knows it's there other than the signs out there. And that's what's going to happen here. It's a 40-acre tract with a 10-acre piece that's going to be used for commercial. And most of that's going to be growing grapes. So, you know, I see nothing wrong with this project, and I moved for approval of the zoning commission approval.
Second
concur
by-
with the zoning approval.
Second by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, we need the motion to enter the ordinance. Motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Tammany. Oh, yeah. Okay, ordinance for adoption, ordinance number 1, calendar number 6065, ordinance to amend the parish code to add new sections to regulate fire alarm systems. Mr. Canulet. Thank you.
Okay, on this,
Mr. Balisar, hold on,
Yes.
I'll get you right
Okay.
here. Hold on.
my mic's on now. I've had several discussions with different council members, and there's an issue that came up tonight when Mr. Tanner and I talked about it. I think it's sufficient enough to postpone the introduction, the adoption of this ordinance, or make the amendments that had worked out between the December 6th council meeting and this current meeting, because he came up with something that's valid, and I've been told that it's there, but it's a process that the fire districts use, but it's not shown in the ordinance. So I feel more comfortable with postponing this and having a committee meeting to iron that out.
Second by Mr. Tanner. Before we vote, we have a card by Mr. We have a card by Mr. Jody Waltz. Okay, that's what I was going to say. Next month, we'll have it on the agenda. Thank you, sir. Seeing no one else, Mr. Stavancic.
If my mic's on. I still would like somebody to tell me how many false alarms that any district has had, and a summary of all of them in the parish. And I haven't received that, and I've been to those meetings, and it seems they're shying away from giving us the amount. And then the question is, I'd like to see some more cost analysis based on the fact that that they had to bring in additional people to have to do that, because they have said everybody who's gone on a false alarm was on regular payroll at the time. So we didn't add any more money. I'm trying to get some good cost analysis of what's going on and the numbers that they're dealing with. And I would appreciate it if the chairman of that group would get that for us. Thank you.
We'll do that for you, Mr. Stefanski. Okay, so we have a motion to postpone. All in favor? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 6100, ordinance to amend the official planning zoning map to reclassify 2.5 acres from A1-1 and MHO to A-2 and MHO, Ward 2, District 3. Mr. Thompson. Motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Fitzgerald. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 6101, ordinance to establish a placement of stop signs on Dove Park Road, Ward 5, District 5. Mr. Taladano? Motion by Mr. Taladano, second by Mr. Thompson. Seeing no one, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 6102, ordinance to declare multiple adjudication properties as surplus and to proceed with the process of sale of same. Motion by Mr. Tanner, second by Mr. Taladano. Oh, Ms. Blanchard, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 6103, ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire certain parcels in West Abita Springs subdivision, Ward 3, District 2. Motion by Mr. Fitzgerald, second by Mr. Dean. Seeing no one, please vote.
Mr. Toledano? Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 6, number 6104, ordinance to amend the 2018 operating budget, amendment number 10.
So moved.
Okay. Mr. Stavancic? Motion by Mr. Stavancic, second by Mr. Balacero.
Yes.
Thank you.
You ready to vote?
You ready to vote?
Ready? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 7, ordinance calendar number 6105, ordinance extend for 6 months moratorium on property within defined area within St. Tammany Parish, Council District 14. Mr. Smith. Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Balacero. Please vote.
Mr. Stefanczyk? Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 8, ordinance calendar number 6106, ordinance to amend the ordinance to provide legal boundaries for precincts. Ms. Blanchard? Motion by Ms. Blanchard, second by Mr. Balacero.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 9, ordinance number 6107, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 2.3 acres from A-2 to A-2 and MHO, Ward 3, District 5.
So moved.
Mr. Toledano, second by Mr. Balacero.
Mr. Toledano, Mr. Tanner? Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay. Ordinance calendar number 10, number 6108, ordinance to amend the 2019 operating budget, amendment number 1. Motion by Mr. Toledano. Mr. Stavancic, second. Ms. O'Brien. Hold on 1 second, Ms. O'Brien. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, yes, I want to go on the record as stating that I do not support portion A of this amendment. I do want to voice that I do support the rest of it. I think most of it is a formality anyway, with the exception of the janitorial funds. And the reason I don't support the Section A is because of the fact that when we started talking about giving a cost of living increase for everybody, the concern was mainly our lower salaried people. And I will be perfectly honest, I do see a lot of support for the regular rank and file, but I'm not seeing support when I talk to people, for people who have extremely high salaries. I know one of my constituents said, well, Maureen, what is the cost of a living increase? So I got some help from Dr. Bill Jobert and Herb Halloway at Southeastern Louisiana University, and they sent me some documentation. And it was a valid question. Now, last year it was 2.1, the previous year it was 1.3, prior to that 0.1, and going backwards 1.6, 1.5, on and on. So we typically do have a 2%, but based on the fact that we not once, not twice, but 3 times went out to the voters and asked them to support our tax initiatives based on critical need, I'm not seeing that I have the permission, so to speak, to support this particular portion. So I did want to go on the record as stating that I do support the remainder. And I just want to also say this is nothing against any particular employee. I know we have people who do excellent and, in many cases, exceptional work. I know in our case, in our council staff, we have wonderful employees who work very hard. I just talked about Kelly and Sydney at my meeting just the other day. They did a great job. This is certainly nothing personal. But for some people who make $50,000, like the very first person I spoke to, not the only person, but the very first person I spoke to was a professional who made in the 50s. She hadn't had a raise in 5 years. That's just a hard pill for them to swallow, that we're going to be giving a quote, cost of living to some people who make 6 figures. So I did want to be on the record that, yes, I do support our employees. They do a great job, and I know administration has worked very hard, tirelessly, to make sure that we have great customer service, and we do. But I have to represent, and I don't see support for across the board. So I will be voting no because of Section A.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. I appreciate it. Let me just, I can, like you and I spoke a while back, I understand everything that you're saying, and, you look at it, but the across the board, to me, we're going to take care of all the employees, and then we're going to single out a few other ones, and they're even doing even as much work or more because of the cutbacks that we have in place right now. So I understand what you're saying. The other issue that was very important for me to support it was the fact that there's only $9,900 coming out of the general fund, which is the main fund that we'll be looking at when we, do it. But I understand exactly what you're saying, and
Well, I want to say,
go there.
Right.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I want to say certainly it's a respectful disagreement. It's not the first time I disagree with my colleagues, and it certainly won't be the last. But again, I just wanted to make it known that it was a matter of record. For me, this is a principle vote, and I just believe with government, when we legislate by principle, that's not a bad thing.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Stefancic.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I support what we're doing here. And I just want to remind my colleague here that it is not up to us to decide the salaries that the administration pays and what kind of raises they give to those people. It's our challenge to budget, and we can budget a percentage, which is what we do all the time. We budget a percentage of the overall amount or whatever it is, so that we give that, and then they can allocate salaries the way that they wish to. The fact that we're giving excuse me, we are budgeting a 2% COLA does not mean that the parish president will give a 2% COLA to everybody on her staff. And I think there's a big difference between that and us telling her or trying to tell her that some of her staff should get a COLA and some of them shouldn't. So I think under the budgeting process, if my colleague would understand the budgeting process, we would have a better understanding of what's going on with the people in the parish. We did not give anybody a merit pay raise. We gave totally zero to the administration to give merit pay raises, and they have what they have left to distribute to the 2%. And if some of them doesn't get it, that's money that will come into a budget amendment later on. So wanted to let that be aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stefancic. Mr. Balisaro?
What I want to briefly say is Okay. What I briefly want to say is, when you look at the parish's total budget for business people, it's complex, because in corporate America, you've got a solid lineup on a hierarchy to roll up to the total. When you look at a parish government or city government, it is based upon various elections for different taxes for specific uses. So you have separate funds. With the defeat of the two taxes, that has adversely impacted the general fund. It does no damage to the various enterprise funds. So I'm comfortable in voting her because these people deserve it. We know there has been layoffs and there'll continue to be layoffs. So you have people who may be a director or an assistant director, but they're not working the same number of hours and working on the same number of tasks that they were. Both of those have gone up. They're working more hours and dealing with more tasks. So I feel comfortable with supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Balisaro. Madam President?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to make a couple comments, and I appreciate the conversation. There's been a lot of it. We have 430 employees. We're talking about 20 employees that are above the number that you mentioned, Ms. O'Brien. And while it's a matter of principle for you not to vote for this, it's a matter of principle for me to tell you that these employees are working harder than they've ever worked, doing more work, spending more hours, particularly at night. Whenever a council member calls and asks them to go to a meeting at night, they're always there. Just last week, during the holidays, when we had the rain event, they weren't able to leave. They were on call 24/7. It's not a matter of whether they need the money. They deserve a 2% COLA raise because they're doing more work for less money. So I truly do appreciate the comments, but I think it's just as much a matter of principle for me. Thank you.
Mr. Stefanski?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one other thing. I think all my colleagues should remember last year, nobody in the parish got any kind of a raise. And I think that's significant when we're talking about a 2% raise over a 2-year period. That's what we're looking at. So, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one in the queue, but, you know, I'm just going to say everybody has their issues, and I respect everybody's issue on this, and I can understand what Ms. O'Brien's saying and her thoughts and her discussions, and as the other council members. So we have, these are in 4 parts or 5 parts, and I need to, we'll finish with the budget, we'll vote for them all at one time, but we have an issue with the district attorney budget, and I'm going to call on Ms. Rabelais to present the amendment, and I'll ask someone to introduce it. And Ms. Rabelais?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you look at item D on your administrative comment to this budget line item, we are asking to remove the transfer expenditures of $177,088 for risk management related expenses from the District Attorney's Civil Division to the Parish CAO Department, per the request of the District Attorney. As a practical matter, we're still working with the District Attorney on this request. It will come before you again. We just need additional time to continue our conversations on this matter.
Okay, and Mr. Menard from the District Attorney's Office, you're in conjunction with this, I'm assuming, or Mr. Sanders? No objection to it, okay. So I just want to make sure. I see you had your head down there, so I just wanted to make sure. But, yes, sir. Okay. I need a motion by Mr. Taladano, second by Mr. Balisaro for the amendment. We vote. Please vote on the amendment. Oh, just the amendment, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. It's been popping up and going, but go right ahead. I don't know if it was a pop-up or one down, but go right ahead.
I want to make sure and ask Ms. Rabelais, is this the change for them sending back some people that they took over?
No.
Uh,
Good.
This
I
is,
can't do that. Go ahead.
hello?
Go
Okay.
ahead, Kelly.
Yes, this is for the risk management employees and the costs associated with those employees. So it is, we're going to stay status quo at this time. So we would like to remove that transfer of funds from the district attorney's budget to the CAO office at this time.
Mr. Smith?
And I just wanted to make sure that I'm clear on that amendment concerning the DA's transfer as we prepare to vote. And I don't know if Stefansik's question that spoke to that or not, but does that include, that transfer include in his salaries and benefits the COLA raises as well, or any COLA raises as well for those people that are being, this money's being transferred for?
Well, first of all, we're requesting that there not be a transfer, right? That is the purpose of the amendment, is that we remove the transfer of that dollar amount that is in the proposed amendment at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one, please vote for the amendment. Yes, amendment only, Ms. O'Brien.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Seeing no one else in the, Mr. Ballas, seeing no one else in the queue, need a motion for the adoption of the operating budget. Mr. Ballasaro, Mr. Stefanski, as amended.
Motion passes, 12 yeas, 1 nay, 1 absent.
Okay, we have one off-the-floor item. Number one, resolution to state the council's intention of any raise attributable to the council members as a result of 2019 COLA to parish employees. I think I need a motion to open, please. Motion by Mr. Ballasaro, second by Mr. Stefanski.
Ms. O'Brien? Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Mr. Stefanski.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Stefanski to remove, second by Mr. Ballasaro. Seeing no one in the queue, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Canulet, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. While we're still on budget, may I have just 1 minute, please?
You have the floor, ma'am.
I can't tell you how thankful I am to have this behind us. Our staff has worked unbelievable hours, finance particularly, and Annie has not been here at every meeting, so I wanted to say it in front of her because we certainly have told Leslie Long how much we appreciate it, but they have spent endless hours trying to get this budget in line with our revenue that's coming in now. So I wanted to thank them publicly, and I appreciate your giving me the time.
Well, thank you, and we all realize how much the employees and everyone works, and as Ms. Blanchard said earlier, last year was a very tough year, and this year will also, but thank you very much, and motion by Mr. Canulet, second by Mr. Stefanski to adjourn. Thank you.
I'm surprised you could find it.